back to the Daily Grind. Thanks for checking out the channel. Make sure to hit subscribe if you're new and hit thumbs up if you're not a baby back pickle biting bitch boy, cause you know what time it is. It's full time.
MMA.
UFC 221 just got a lot bigger, especially in Perth, Australia, with Cris Cyborg accepting a fight with Megan Anderson, a legit 145-pound female fighter who's looking to come to the UFC and actually be a legit challenge to Cris Cyborg. After Cris Cyborg's dominant performance, well, some people don't say it was dominant, but hey, it is what it is. Cris Cyborg's a dominant fighter, so we're rocking with dominant. After Cris Cyborg's dominant performance versus Holly Holm at UFC 219 December 30th, Megan Anderson took to Twitter and said, "Great fight, ladies. Congrats, Cris, on retaining your belt. UFC, I think there's only one fight to make now against a legit featherweight, UFC 219. Megan Anderson, if you don't know who she is, she's coming over from Invicta. I believe she was Invicta's featherweight champion, if I'm not mistaken. Either way, she's a legit 145-pounder, and that's what she was saying. We all know that Cris Cyborg, has had trouble finding. The UFC has not built the 145-pound division, so Cris Cyborg has had a problem getting chicks to fight her. And most of the chicks that do fight her end up coming from 135 pounds. Tanya Evinger came not only up from 135 pounds, but from a whole nother organization, also Invicta. We just had Holly Holm, who's fought at 145 pounds before, but normally fights at 135 pounds. Cris Cyborg's fought, I believe, Leslie Smith now that fought at 100. So you get the point. Cris Cyborg, is usually fighting bantamweight, stepping up to featherweight. Well, Megan Anderson is a legit featherweight, and she's also from Australia. I believe one of the reasons they were supposed to fight before, but the fight didn't happen. I think it was either personal issues with Megan Anderson or visa issues. I've heard both. Ariel Helwani elaborated a little bit on the MMA Hour and said she wasn't ready to speak on the personal issues, but that played a part with why she hasn't fought yet in the UFC. But that along the visa issues, if it was visa issues, those should not play a part at UFC 221 because she's Australian, I believe, and it's in Australia, Perth. Robert Whittaker versus Luke Rockhold for the middleweight title. Cris Cyborg would be going on a motherfucking world ass-whipping tour as she would be defending her belt in her opponent's hometown, which would still be dope. I was listening to Ariel Helwani's show on Monday, and I think he was saying if Anderson wasn't ready, maybe the UFC looks at Cris Cyborg fighting in Brazil next. But hey, whether she's fighting in Brazil, Las Vegas, or her opponent's hometown, it's going to be a big fight. And I really like the idea of continuing the momentum of these, champions. Francis Ngannou, you come out of a fight, pretty much unscathed versus Alistair Overeem. 2 pay-per-views later, from UFC 218 to 220, fighting again versus the champion. Cris Cyborg come out pretty much unscathed versus Holly Holm. I mean, she did get, bloodied up for the first time, but other than that, she didn't take too much head trauma, stuff like that. So boom, 2 pay-per-views later, from UFC 219 to UFC 221. Just keep that momentum going. So Francis Ngannou and Cris Cyborg, I like the way that that's happening with the momentum, keeping that on their side. It would be a dope addition to UFC 221, which is in Perth, Australia. The rest of that card, I don't quite know, but either way, man, it is what it is. I've said enough on this video. Shout out to the boss nigga on Snapchat who requested this video and let me know that it was announced, or that Cris Cyborg accepted the fight. It's not official. The UFC hasn't announced the fight, but I don't see why this fight wouldn't happen. Megan Anderson called out Cris Cyborg. Cris Cyborg accepted the fight. It's in Megan Anderson's hometown. It's another title fight for UFC 221, and if Cyborg's ready, I'm ready. With that being said, it is what it is. Let the full-time family know what you think in the comments, because I'm out.
Da 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 da! It's the motherfucking D-O-double-G!